Welcome, everybody, to the Tea with Ms McGill Show. We appreciate you being here. Got some new subscribers this past week. Steve Peterson, Jake Rombach, Carl Larson, be just like them right now. Hit the subscribe button and thumbs up button. We'd appreciate that. It is Puka. It is the star of the show, Reed Larson. How was Christmas?
Christmas, fantastic. It's always good. It's been a busy run here for, running around trying to get together with family and dealing with coaching hockey and it's nice to be on a break right now from the job that pays the bills. The teacher and me, it's nice to be on a little bit of a break, but I miss my students. Ready for a little changeover in a new year. Yeah,
it's coming up here real quick. Just a couple of days. So happy New Year to everybody out there. Like I said, happy holidays. We said a little bit that last week. So weather's, temperatures warmed up a little bit, so you can get outside and get the outdoor rink. Have some fun. I saw a bunch of people on the back rink here in Rapids yesterday enjoying themselves. All right. Speaking of the weather, Aspire Heating and Control, that's your go-to. The furnace goes out. It is going to dip a little bit here this weekend. We're going to have lows like in the single digits. So obviously, if we have any wind, we're going to be below zero. So if you're having any trouble with that furnace, Aspire Heating Control, so you call it. They're your local Bryant dealer. Bryant is the official heating and cooling company of the Minnesota Wild. They specialize in gas, electric, and hydronic heating and cooling systems for existing and new construction, residential and commercial installations available. Forced air systems, boilers, heat pumps, mini splits. They are licensed and bonded, so give Justin a call. 218-999-5957. 999-5957 if and when that furnace has trouble. All right, so we've had some holiday hockey. Let's kick it off as we always do with GR. On the bench, as always, Coach Reed Larson. Big one against literally a big team and a highly ranked team in Minnetonka yesterday afternoon for a matinee.
Yeah, it was a pretty good performance, I think, by both teams. Nobody in the coaching world likes to talk about moral victories. Everybody wants to win, and that's the whole idea behind it. And as a coach, you still leave the game last night with a 4-1 loss with you grind your teeth thinking you want to win the game. Okay. But there's some takeaways. There's some silver lining that Rapids fans can take away from this. Number one, Minnetonka is by far the best team in the state of Minnesota. And sorry, Wayzata, you're number two. For whatever reason, we keep seeing teams go or keep seeing rankings come in, and Wayzata's got number one, and they've got Minnetonka number two, and whoever else is number three, Rogers or whoever they're kind of throwing in the mix right now. Wayzata's good. They're an easy number two, state ranked right now, but Minnetonka is the best team in the state of Minnesota. They came in the IRA Civic Center yesterday, 2:00. And they handed it to us. They pounded us to the ground in the first period. Offense was coming at us all day long. They do play kind of a perimeter game, but they're so fast.
And some big kids.
Yeah, large bodies on their team, and their second line, all three guys are over 6 foot, 185 pounds, every one of them. So big dudes that can shoot the puck on the back end. Every defenseman is a big guy. I think the only deficiency that I see in their game, and we didn't get a chance to test that often because I think we had a total of about 10 shots the whole night, is their goalie. That's probably the only spot where I see winning a state championship is going to be difficult if you don't have the best goalie in the state. And maybe that's what the rankings are thinking of right now when they're rating Wayzata ahead of them, because Wayzata probably has one of the best goalies in the state in Will England. So that makes a big difference. But on the side of how much talent they've got three lines of players that in any given team in the state of Minnesota, their third line could be first line on a lot of teams around the state. So Rapids played a really good, solid game last night. It was a difficult first period because we were just trying to get our feet under us. But second period came around. We go into the second period. We're down 2-0. We're able to sustain some sort of structure in the game, and we get a power play and we pop one in to make it 2-1, and we're grinding, we're going, we're on it. We're buzzing, getting offensive chances. That's where we had the majority of our shots were in the second period. Where we were really good was on the back end. We were defending well against some of the fastest skaters in the state. The Sheets kid, number 21 for their team, is a stud player. And we've got young defensemen like Luka Roloff who are playing him like he should.
Yeah,
We've got
a lot of minutes. Yeah.
veteran defensemen like Will Stoffer who are playing him like they should, keeping him to the outside.
He
And
popped one yesterday.
he did.
Right? Yeah,
Stoffer scored our only goal in the power play yesterday. By the way, that's nice that we finally scored a power play goal because we just moved our power play percentage from like 8% to like 10 now. So we're moving it up a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, but we'll talk about the power play percentage just for a minute, and then we'll go back to talking about our penalty kill where we're at like 94.7. I like that.
Okay.
But that goes into explaining the other big X factor into the game. And whenever we talk about it, we didn't have to kill any penalties last night, but anytime you talk about a team that has a good penalty kill percentage, 90 or above, they've got to have a fantastic goalie to be in that spot. And we'll get into this a little bit more deeper in detail later on in the show here, but there's a reason why our penalty kill is 94%. It's because of Miles Gunderson. Obviously we're good on the back end. We've got, 4 guys that play on a regular basis with defensemen back there, but that's a big reason as to why. And he was the other X factor in the game. He kept us in the game with 42 saves last night. They did score an open netter to make it 4-1. But it was a 3-1 game. They scored that third goal with about 7 minutes left in the game. And we kept trying to do a couple things and couldn't get anything going. But late in the game, we pull the goalie, we take our timeout, we get some chances and just not quite enough. They scored an open netter.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah. Good fought battle. Like I said, good matinee and a really good crowd.
Decent for a 2:00 game. And we talk about this all the time. It's difficult to pull crowds, especially on a weeknight. I mean, we get it. It's a holiday week and the kids don't have school, but people still have jobs.
Right.
Like they're still working at 2:00 in the afternoon. So when you can pull over 1,000 fans in that building at 2:00 in the afternoon, that's not bad. If that were a 5:00 game, I bet you that building's full.
Right.
Especially when the best team in the state is coming. And there were a lot of scouts there last night. Of course, there's a few scouts that are watching a couple of our guys, but I imagine they're watching a lot of the Minnetonka guys there, guys from around UMD, Bemidji State, some NHL scouts in the building. Of course, we have an NHL scout in the building every single night because he comes to watch his grandson play. It's Anton coming to watch Luca play. But at any rate, it's nice to see that decent sized crowd on a Wednesday afternoon.
All right. Perfect. Hammer the like button. We'd appreciate that. All right. Holidays. Well, Christmas season is over. We told you about the gift card special at the Rink Sports Bar and Grill over in Evelyn. So take those cards now. Just a couple of days be New Year's Eve. Just down from the Hockey Hall of Fame. Full bar, full menu, breakfast, lunch, dinner. Friday fish fry. Friday's tomorrow. We'll post this today. So tomorrow's Friday. Get out there for the fish fry. Daily specials, hockey themed establishments. Pretty cool. Got all the old unis we talked about before. 248-8582, or you can order online, the Rink Sports Bar and Grill.com. Go say hi to Michelle. She'll take good care of you. All right. So I was able to catch online last night. Big Iron Range matchups. Big for the seedings for the section. Rock Ridge traveled over to Hibbing. Hibbing ended up pulling off the 1-0 win with shots coming in at 29-26 in Hibbing's favor. I was a little surprised at that after just watching the game. I thought it might have been just the opposite with Rock Ridge, just with a little bit more. Hibbing kind of took it to him the first 2 periods, but other than a power play in the third, especially territorially, Rock Ridge really dominated that game. So a big step for the Blue Jackets, obviously, for trying to earn that number 2 seed behind Hermantown. One thing I noticed, obviously, it's Rock Ridge now. Virginia and Evelyn, for those of you who don't know, they're combined. Virginia, Evelyn, Mountain Iron, Gilbert, Mesabi East. So they're all combined. But back 10-ish years ago, Reed was coaching in Virginia. And, we want to talk a little bit about that rivalry because when you started, that was pretty big between Hibbing and Virginia.
Yeah, no, that was a big rivalry back when I first started. This dates back into the Keith Hendrickson era as well, too. Late in his career, going back when his kid was playing, when Garrett was going through the program, it was Virginia and Hibbing knocking foreheads together for that Section 7A championship game. And it was kind of Hermantown was in the section for a while. They went out of the section for a long time, went into Section 5. And when they were in Section 5, it was always Hibbing and Virginia playing for that section championship. So that created a big hatred between the two or rivalry, however you want to talk about it. And I just remember it was for 3 years in a row, or 4 years in a row, it was Hibbing versus Virginia in the section finals. Back-to-back years, Virginia wins to go to state with Keith there. And then the next year, I think it was Keith's last year, Hibbing beats Virginia 5-0 in the championship game, goes to the state tournament. And then the next year I come in and I remember there just being you love to play the game, but you hate the team you're playing. So it's a love-hate relationship, right? So there was a huge hatred between the two. And I remember that first year that I coached there, Hibbing came to the Miners Memorial Building. They beat us in front of a crowd of about 2,000 people, 5-4. And then we played them, and it was always at the end of the season, February 14th, usually on Valentine's Day, right around that time on a Tuesday night, we would play them with the last game of the regular season before Wednesday when seeding came out. Sure. And we went over there in the last game of the season and we beat them, and we had no business beating them. They had Adam Johnson on their team that year. And for whatever reason, we put together a pretty good little game plan. And I had a player on my team that sat back with one of my assistant coaches with Chris Weston. And I said, we're going to stick somebody on Johnson all day long and see if he can handle this. And Chase Sisted was the player we put on him. And the Chase Sisted would, if I'd say this and he's watching, he is 100% agrees with this. He had no business being on the rink with him, skating with him, because he can't skate with him. But the one thing he could do was tick him off. Okay. And he was getting under his skin the whole game. He was shadowing him the whole game, getting under his skin. And Johnson ended up taking a whole bunch of penalties that game. He took a 5-minute major at the end of the game and had a 10-minute misconduct. And Chase had accomplished his goal that night. And we ended up beating him. So it was the last game of the season. That was one of the bigger wins that I had, obviously, coming into coaching that program. Was a big rivalry and everybody was excited. It was, again, the Memorial Building was packed that night. And decent last night though, too. So kind of moving on here to where in recent years that rivalry kind of faded. The last year I remember that rivalry being as big as it was in 2014. After that, then they kind of had a team come through that Hibbing program that they dominated Virginia, and it wasn't even close games when they had Perunovich coming through and a couple of other guys, Jarrett Lee and Zach Boom were coming through. And Virginia, we struggled. They beat us up. They swept us a couple of times in a row, 2 years in a row, and then they were gone and moved on. And then Hibbing was down and we swept them a couple of years in a row. And it didn't seem like they were good games anymore. Later, in my time, it was more of a rivalry with Evelyn than it was with Hibbing. It was more Hibbing at the beginning of my career. Well,
yeah, that's why I brought it up, because I mean, there were some big hits. It felt like a big game, but it didn't. I guess maybe the word you use, that hatred, just didn't seem to be there. And so unfortunately, hopefully somehow it rekindles. It's almost seemed like we've lost that rivalry. And then, like you say, with Evelyn and Virginia combining, we've lost that rivalry.
Yeah.
And the rivalry games up here in the range used to be such a big deal.
Well, and I think we're going to get to this here in the next segment, but there has to be an identity, I think, that needs to be developed right now. And right now it is Rock Ridge identifying as half the team identify as, old Blue Devil type of rivalry. Are they identifying as an old Golden Bear type of rivalry? What are we? You got to identify yourself as the Wolverines. And right now there's still a push for who are we as an organization. And I think the coaching staff is doing a fantastic job of trying to do that. And I'll stick up for those guys any day of the week and twice on Sunday. It's a struggle. I'm sure there's some frustrations as expectations. You'll talk about that here in a minute, but they still have to identify who they are. And that it doesn't happen in 1 year, not even in a year and a half. There's a lot of tradition that went into the Virginia Blue Devils and the Evelyn Gilbert Golden Bears. There's a lot of tradition and a lot of history that go there. And it's difficult too. Sometimes some nights you're playing at the Hippodrome where it's literally, you're walking into a museum that's all about Evelyn hockey. Right. And it's not Evelyn playing. Right. It's Rock Ridge, right? And you walk into a brand new rink when you go over to the Mech or you go over to that Iron Trail Motors Arena, the new one, there isn't anything on the walls in there. It's bare. So it's like you have to build a tradition there, which is kind of good because now every time you walk into that rink, you're not looking at old Blue Devil stuff.
Right, sure.
You know, you're walking in, you see bare walls. Well, there's bare walls because this is new. You have to build your tradition. There's no mural you can put on the wall unless you're going to put a Virginia mural on one side and an Evelyn mural on the other. It's like, no, it's time to build a new tradition right now.
Point. Yeah,
So it's going to take time. And I think those frustrations that I think that maybe you'll talk about here.
Well, that's, just, so Rock Ridge now 4-4-7, or excuse me, 4-4-1 with 7 seniors on the team. Yeah, just the vibe. This isn't our opinion, but just the vibe from the general public, and not even people from that community, but people from other communities thinking, oh gosh, these programs are going to combine and they're going to dominate the range. Obviously with 4-4-1 record, that's not happening. And just kind of your thoughts. I mean, how do you, as a coach, obviously we're kind of getting to that midpoint of the season here. They're definitely not out of it. So how do you kind of keep your team melded, molded together and motivated to, they can still make a push here?
Well, like I was saying, it's time to think about the identity of the program and what do you want to be? Do you want to be middle of the road? Do you want to be mediocre? There's some teams right now in that area that are talking about going to the next level. And we've had this conversation before. And I think this makes a big change in who Rock Ridge is going to be in the future. Are you going to stay right where you are? You are the combination of 2 schools. 2 big schools. You've also got Mountain Iron and Mesabi East as well too in that program. But what's going to draw people and what's going to draw people to work harder and get better? Are you going to continue to play at a single A level or are you going to go double A?
Right.
That's going to make a big change in the identity of that program because then it forces youth kids to move into a double A Bantam program and a double A Pee Wee program. And I think it's only good for area hockey if that's what their decision is going to be. So identity is going to be huge and that's going to be part of it. Are we going to try to be the best at the single A level or are we going to try to continue to build and build? And right now, the way you're building a youth program. I can see their youth programs getting better. I hear about their Bantam program doing really well over the course of the last 2 years here. And those kids are going to keep filtering in. So are we going to challenge those kids to get better? They're doing really well at a Bantam A level. Are we going to challenge them to do better at a Bantam double A level and play at the next level? So that's part of it. I think separating the identity of, we still have our love for the Evelyn Gilbert Golden Bears. We still have our love for the Virginia Blue Devils. You can have that love for those programs and you can tuck it away somewhere back here behind your heart. But you better start finding a love for who the Rock Ridge Wolverines are and start building some identity and developing a culture that you guys can build on and use. And I think their coaching staff is trying their butts off to continue to develop that. And I think people have to continue to jump on board and support that.
Yeah. Well, and I think speaking of the youth program, I believe last year they went scored A's for the first time. If somebody knows for sure, please drop a comment. But I know they are this year, but I think last year. So like I said, kind of moving in that right direction.
Yeah, and I think that's again, there's not a lot of programs that can do that are that size. It was Squirt Bees in Virginia the whole time I was there. It was Squirt Bees in Evelyn and in Hibbing the whole time,
Greenway, yeah.
All in Greenway and all those years. And there's a reason why they do that. It's because of their size, right? You start looking at the size of those programs and you think, okay, in a Squirt scenario, how many kids do you legitimately have in your program that are Squirt A caliber? If you don't have 15 of them or 20 of them, then you don't play a Squirt A organization. You play Squirt Bs. If you've got 25 kids that can legitimately play, then why would you split them up? Right. Have them play at another level. Right. And right now, that's Rapids has been at that for a long period of time. And they're starting to get more kids in that organization now that are at that level. You can put them there.
Yeah,
you challenge those higher end kids to get better, and your second tier kids that are in that B program are better level kids.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. Okay.
And that's going to help their program. Again, if you're looking at them having a Squirt A program, if they're looking at making the push to having a double A program, that's going to push their higher end kids into a Pee Wee double A and their higher end kids into a Bantam double A. And you're just going to continue to see that program play harder schedules. They're going to be playing the Eden Prairies. They're going to be playing the Wayzettas. They're going to be playing the Grand Rapids, the Duluth Easts and the Hermantown double A programs. Of course, Hermantown is going to play AA youth and continue to play single A high school, which we're not going to talk about that. But that's only going to make their program better.
Yeah, I agree. All right. A word from Iron Range Apparel over there in the Thunderbird Mall. ODR swag. That's the official place you can find that exclusively right at Iron Range Apparel. I call it the Gift Buyer's Paradise. They have all kinds of knickknacks. So I know there might be a little bit of a holiday hangover, but of course, Valentine's is coming. Heck, Martin Luther King Day is coming. Go out and get a gift. So Iron Range Apparel in the Thunderbird Mall, all kinds of merch like tees, hats, caps, sweatshirts, jerseys, hoodies, all that good stuff, and all kinds of like Minnesota themed stuff. I was there last week, bought my wife some stuff for Christmas. So like I said, all kinds of knickknacks. She loves that kind of stuff. So Iron Range Apparel is where you get it done. Like, so you can buy something for a 3-year-old girl, for a 30-year-old man, and a 50-year-old woman. There's a little bit of something there for everybody. Iron Range Apparel, Thunderbird Mall in Virginia. All right, so we just wanted to recognize a few players from up here in the north. They've made the individual leaders in the state of Minnesota. Andy Larson, Duluth Denfeld guy, we talked about him just a couple of weeks ago. He's currently 5th in goals at 18 goals and 5th in total points at 31. So congratulations, Andy. Bo Frieder from Hibbing, he's 6th in assists, tied with 16, and this is as of a couple days ago. And then Miles Gunderson, you previously mentioned here, the goaltender for Grand Rapids, tied with a handful of other goalies for 2nd with 7 wins on the year.
Yeah, there needs to be some more conversations about Miles Gunderson too. I could go on a tangent because he's our goalie, and I could talk about him because he's obviously a friend of the family and whatnot. But you start looking at what goaltenders end up doing for their teams and how, I guess you start to watch how Grand Rapids' season transpires and what happens here as the season goes on. Up to this point in the season, he's looking like a Frank Brimsek Award finalist up to this point. And that's just my opinion. It's got to be the opinion of a lot of different goalie coaches that are around the area too. Now, we don't make those decisions before the new year. Nobody makes those decisions before the new year. It's as things go on, you have to see how the season transpires. But if it continues in this, it'd be a complete travesty if he wasn't sitting on that at the end of the year. Like we watched Jack Pearce a couple of years ago and Joey Del Greco last year sit there being honored as nominee for Mr. Hockey. I would think that Miles would be sitting in that spot if he keeps doing what he's doing.
Well, like I said, big day yesterday, 42 saves, and the radio, Grant Clafton and the other radio announcer, they were saving the game. And then a minute later, saving the game, and a minute later, saving the game. So,
well, you name a goalie in the area or in Grand Rapids that has had to stop 2 penalty shots in 2 years in front of crowds like that. Last night, he stopped another penalty shot against the top team in the state. And last year he stopped a penalty shot against the top player and the state championship team against Stanhover. I mean, he's done a lot of good things. Nice to hear from some of these other guys too. Of course, Andy Larson shares my last name, so I gotta shoot some kudos to him. And Bo Frieder,
definitely a distant relative.
Yeah, for sure. And Bo Frieder is the heart and soul right now of Hibbing Chisholm, who's slating themselves into the number 2 seed if they keep doing what they're doing. But it's nice to see him, and good compliments to his line mates as well too, with the Fawcett kid and the Fink kid that's there as well, who've been really complimentary of his game. But Bo Frieder is the heart and soul of that team.
Very much so. I agree. All right, some scores and more from the week that was. Bemidji over West Fargo 4-0. Warroad dropped Providence Academy 9-1. They are now 7-0. Denfeld drops Owatonna 7-1. Cambridge iced Greenway last night 8-1. I Falls beat up by Orono 7-0. Roseau skated past Alex 7-3. Ely lost to Red Lake Falls 3-1. Cloquet netted 6, and a big win over Mankato West 6-3. Section 7 AA update, Andover with a 5-2 win over Hill. And of course, the Walleye Scotty Dina update, they trounced St. Thomas Academy 5-1. But yeah, that Andover win kind of interesting because they've kind of been here and here and here.
Well, yeah, and just a couple of nights ago, or maybe it was 2 days ago, they just beat up on Benilde like 9-3 or 9-2.
Okay.
So Andover, big win over Benilde, and then the next night, big win over Hill Murray. So I think that Andover got a little bit mad at themselves, maybe had a little bit of team heart to heart after they got beat by Duluth East last weekend. And there's a lot of people in Section 7 AA going, oh my gosh, Duluth East beats Andover 5-1.
Right,
What
trounced them,
happened?
right.
And everybody else in the section are going, yes,
Yeah.
it's now open. And we've talked about this last week. I saw that tweet from Carl East last week saying, hey, just so you know, Section 7AA is no longer seeding with the QRF. There's a vote now. So, and it's been the QRF ratings in Section 7AA ever since 2016, I believe. After that season, they made the push to put that in there. Now the coaches have seen how that goes over the course of the last 5-6 years and not happy with the way that goes. They would rather not a computer choose who their top seeded teams are. They would rather have, you know, humans make the decisions. And now it's going back to people voting, and you start looking at they beat them, they beat them, they beat them, who they beat, their schedule's better, theirs is worse, whatever. You can start having conversations and you can have arguments in a seating meeting, which I think is going to be needed with this, and that our win over Duluth East early in the season, that win East over Andover, then that makes our game with Grand Rapids on January 6th at Duluth East a very big game. And of course, we still have Andover at the end of January down in Andover. So those two games could make a big difference into Grand Rapids being a number 1 seed or a number 2 seed.
Yeah, stay tuned. We're gonna be heading, turning the corner to a very important time of the year here real soon. All right, that's it for episode 48. Please comment. We appreciate your comments. If you want to contact us privately, goatsportsmediallc@gmail.com. Of course, as always, hammer the subscribe button, share the show. Sharing is caring. You can find us, Tea with Ms. McGill, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you're looking for us on YouTube or Facebook, it's Goat Sports Media LLC. As always, t-shirts available, $20 for anything under a double X, an XL, anything over a double X, $22. We can Cash App, Venmo, do all that stuff. We'll get it shipped to you or figure out a place to pick it up or drop it off. Thanks to our partners, Rink Sports Bar and Grill, Iron Range Apparel, Aspire Heating and Control, Iron Range Goalie Academy. For Reed Larson, I am Puka. Get out there and be your dream. You're tuned to the Tea with Ms. McGill Show.